Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg, where we're playing a little bit more Helldivers 2.
Galactic War, a battleground awaiting your heroic intervention.
Wow, I've not played in a little bit. I guess the only thing we're doing now is bugs. Damn, I like to play against bots solo. Well, these aren't the days anymore where you get to just play however you feel like.
Drive the Terminids back from this world. Choose an operation and
you play as they tell you to play. Yeah, where's... I have an operation somewhere. Good luck finding that thing somewhere. Here it is.
Initiating FTL jump to the Astoner system.
Yeah, so I only really play Helldivers nowadays when my friends are on, and that's not too often.
Jump complete.
So it's certainly been a few days. But mostly I have just been playing Cataclysm. Plenty of that. And
yeah,
that's pretty much it. So this week on this channel, we had some Dragon's Dogma 2, and we had Dragon's Down, and I ended up, abandoning Dragon's Dogma 2. I don't know, I feel like I abandoned kind of a lot of Let's Plays these days.
Let them come. Let them brawl.
But
might of the Helldivers.
I don't think I'm alone.
Deploying sport weapon.
And just not being over the moon about Dragon's Dogma 2. It certainly has its fans, but yeah, it just, I don't know. It often comes down to just like, am I recording the Let's Play just like multiple times a day? Am I just recording multiple videos per day because I'm so excited about it? Or am I just like recording once every couple days because I don't have any videos stored up and I need to upload something, so I have to record it?
Terminid hive structure destroyed.
If it gets to that point, then it's usually not a good sign for my enjoyment of the game. Whereas, like Dragon's Down, which certainly not that many people enjoy watching, I get it. But I recorded all those videos in a couple days. So, Yeah, I don't. It's just. Oh, that's why this will always just be a hobby. Like, I'd never be able to actually run, like, a professional stream or anything like that. Because I wouldn't be able to play one game for that length of time. I wouldn't be able to be like, okay, this is the big new game coming out, and we're just going to be playing this every day for the next 3 weeks. I just, yeah, I don't know. But not every streamer's like that, I'm sure. I'm sure there's plenty of just variety streamers that play whatever the hell they feel like, and that's that. So I guess it's kind of like that. I don't know what's on the horizon. The only thing that's on the horizon for sure, as far as like something new coming out that I'm excited about, is the new RimWorld expansion dropping this week. Anomaly. I feel like we probably should do some sort of recorded playthrough.
Found something.
I know we're going to be doing it on Two Brothers Play on Saturday, but as for a solo thing, let's see. Yeah, it's funny though, RimWorld, like I have not ever gotten seriously back into it ever since I discovered Factorio. I've tried multiple times to go back to RimWorld. It only lasts like a couple days. Just like, there's, you know, the control that you have over everything in Factorio as far as like your base is concerned. Whereas RimWorld's kind of just like put things together and hope for the best. I don't know. It seems unfair to RimWorld.
Here comes the cavalry.
So yeah, I mean, maybe we should give it another shot with Anomaly. Could be fun.
Here comes the cavalry.
Not today!
Why is there just random explosion?
Sub-objective nearby.
But otherwise, yeah, Dragon's Down. There's like 6 videos, I think, for that. And then we started up Cataclysm, Sky Island playthrough, which I have finished recording.
Say hello to democracy!
So that'll be coming.
Lost in setting replacement. Request approved. Reinforcements on the way.
Democracy has landed.
And that's where things stand for this panel. Over on the Exploring series, put out a video on the Edge of the World, DJ Cactus.
Eagle, back in the
Good.
fight.
And this week I worked on a video about the armaments of the Tau. Which, you know, it's good. If you like mechs, it's all good. Oh, you can't take the hard drive in the mech? What the fuck? Surely there's a little spot. I can see there's a little spot in there. That's bullshit. Alright, well. You're a nest, I guess. So yeah, that's there's one more 40K video. Should be coming out in a couple weeks about Fulgrim. That'll be that. A little bummer we didn't get to armaments at the Eldar.
Log outpost.
But you know. There was a new admonition article that dropped yesterday or a couple days ago or something like that. It's an intermission, so it's not a full article. Although it's gonna be like a two-parter intermission, so you know.
Mission at 30 minutes remaining.
Get some! Get some!
And yeah, plenty of SCP stuff to do, always. Yeah, so solo role manging this week. It's nice to have so much RPG stuff to talk about again. Solo role manging, we started up a fresh character after Garland died last week. And, you know, I sat down for the session with not a thought in my head whatsoever about what would happen or what I would make or where I'd start or anything. But we started up, we rolled a random class. Well, first I had a sort of rant discussion about the race system in Heroes of Adventure. And I actually did sit down earlier this week. Well, no, a couple days ago. And, I redid the races. So now, for myself and for my family, I've got humans, elves, half-elves, dwarves, half-orcs? Oh, no, maybe I didn't do half-orcs yet. Half-leans. Maybe I just did those. human, dwarf, half elf, halfling. And I think they're relatively balanced. Honestly, I'd say I probably made half elf a little too strong, possibly, but much more balanced overall than what the book has. Anyways, so we rolled up a human mage.
Bug outpost spotted. Prepare to exterminate.
And I decided to start on the continent of Aeroth, which is where my family has been playing the whole time. Great. Fuck you.
Attack underway.
Say hello to democracy.
So we started up Malkalan, as his name, on the sort of eastern half of Aeroth. And we kind of made him, yeah, I mean, a bit of a sociopath, I suppose. You know, he just is interested in, like, studying magical creatures and other, you know, living entities, because he's interested in writing like a big encyclopedia. So, you know, he's planning on finding all these creatures and dissecting them and studying their internals, all that kind of thing.
Package retrieved.
So we started him out this bit of a small town, and you know, he went to the local bulletin board because he does need some money to fund his encyclopedia work. He found posting someone's interested in getting a live goblin, and so he figured, okay, this is good practice because he's gonna end up, you know, trying to capture all sorts of live creatures throughout his work, and here he can get paid for it. So it's all good. But he sets out, heads to one of the small villages, kind of in the wilderness. The intent of finding out where goblins are hanging out and how he can capture one. So he heads to this little village, goes into the pub, and says that he's from, you know, he's with the Ministry of Magic, launching an official investigation into goblins.
Administering freedom.
Mag's empty.
Okay, I was promised a bug breach. I don't know where that happened.
Eagle 1 withdrawing to rearm.
So yeah, you know, I'm just saying, where are these goblins? I'm investigating. Where are they hiding out? And then I rolled, and I rolled a 1. And so he decided that basically people in this pub thought this was just a hilarious joke. Just laughed and laughed at old Malkalon, telling him, oh, it's funny, you know, you're just gonna get yourself killed, blah 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 blah. Uproarious laughter filling the pub. He brought joy to these people's hearts.
grenade!
But Malkalon doesn't really care for that, you know. He's not the kind of guy that just rolls with it and laughs at himself. So he just sort of storms out. But decides, you know, he's not gonna just give up like that. So he goes to one of the guards, you know, stationed at the front of town. Local, you know, militia or whatever. It's like, alright, you know, just casual conversation. Where do we think all these goblins are coming from? What's going on with these goblins? And I could have just at that point, like, role played or what, you know, just done a little bit of dialogue. But I did another roll. And I rolled another one.
You will never destroy our way of life!
Got another one. At this point, I'm just laughing myself. And I just picture all the people in the pub just coming out now and just continuing to laugh uproariously. This guy's investigating goblins. You know, just the whole town gathers around. Not stop laughing at old Malkalon. Forced to just he's just kind of run out of town pretty much. Just laughing. You know, he says to himself, like, "Oh, I'm not gonna forget this. I'm not gonna forget this. Someday, you'll pay." And he decides, you know, in his kind of frustration and anger, he does something a little stupid. And he just heads off into the wilderness in the hopes of just coming across some goblins. He does not come across goblins. Instead, he comes across a group of kobolds who ambush him in the woods. And he kind of blunders right into it and very nearly dies. It was quite close, actually. Insanely close. Basically, they ambushed him. He did not see them. You know, he failed the roll to see through their stealth. So they ambush him. There were 5 of them, which is a number I rolled randomly. I rolled a d12 and I got 5. So it could have been a lot worse than that. And then, you know, I just rolled all their numbers for attacks and damage. And he got brought down to 2 health. Which was pretty interesting because had I been brought down to 0 health, I would have been dead. Had I been brought down to 1 health, I would have also been dead because I would not have been able to cast a spell. So 2 was literally the lowest survivable number that I could have. Gotta love the lighting though on this. muzzle flashing against all the bugs, just constantly strobing.
You will never destroy our way of life!
So yeah, I got brought down to 2 HP. And then, that was their surprise round. So then we had to roll initiative. And if I rolled a lower initiative than them, I was also dead. They would all get another attack round.
Say hello to democracy!
An eagle never misses.
So it was very close. But that's what makes it exciting.
Equipment package.
So I succeeded on my initiative roll, thank you. And I had one opportunity. To cast a spell that would allow me to escape this hellish scenario.
Coming in hot.
How'd you like to taste of freedom?
Good either.
Enemy down, babe.
For prosperity!
Eagle 1 rearming. Be back shortly.
I can't even talk.
My leg!
We've got into a very shitty situation here. Come on, what the fuck was that?
Request approved. Reinforcements on the way.
Joining the fray.
You may proceed to extraction when ready.
Rechargers, solos, so rough. Come on, why are you not climbing?
Freedom never sleeps!
Why are you not climbing? Like, it's so random. So I had one opportunity to cast a spell in order to get myself out of this situation. And I decided to use Sorcery Surge as an ability, which I can use once per encounter in order to cast a spell at advantage. But if I roll a 1, 2, or 3 on either dice, we have to roll on the Wild Magic table.
This is Eagle 1. We're back in business.
And I decided to cast my Ethereal Phase spell, I think it's called, which makes me ethereal and I can phase through solid matter. Pretty handy. So I rolled, and of course I succeeded on casting the spell, which allowed me to just, like, sink into the ground and then move through it to flee. Yeah, the spell is pretty vague, doesn't really say what you can or can't do with it. But I figured, you know, I can phase through the ground if I want. I just can't really see anything down there.
You may proceed to extraction when ready.
And, but I did roll a 3 on one of the dice. So that meant that we rolled on the Wild Magic table. And what I rolled on that was another 3. which meant that a shadowy mirror version of myself appears with all of my powers and attacks the caster. But it was irrelevant because I was just phasing through the ground and I was out of there. And this thing, which has my capabilities, I mean, it could phase through the ground as well, but it wouldn't know where I went.
Extraction shuttle inbound.
You know, we just kind of ruled that, like, this thing doesn't have omniscient knowledge of my position or anything. So...
Sending down support weapon.
and I also decided that like, Malkalon didn't even see this shadow mirror appear.
T-minus 2 minutes, 30 seconds.
It's dark, you know, he's frantic, he's almost dead, and he phased into the ground immediately as it appeared. So he didn't even see it, not even aware of it. And then that was just kind of the end of the encounter. I went back home and I rested. But afterwards, you know, we were sitting there thinking, and it's like, well, what happens to the shadow doppelgang if it's not killed during the combat, you know?
Have a taste of democracy!
If you just flee and run away, does it, does it chase after you? Does it disappear? Does it just go on its way somewhere else? Does it retire to the Bahamas? Who knows? Obviously, the book just says that a shadowy mirror version of the caster with all their powers appears and attacks them. And that's all it needs to say, really.
Here comes the cavalry.
T-minus 1 minute.
But then I had kind of a wicked idea.
Orbital strike incoming.
The wicked idea of this being like a shadowy version of Malkalon, kind of a dark version of him.
ETA T-minus 30 seconds.
And I thought, you know, Malkalon has some thoughts in the back of his head
ETA
about what he'd like to do to that village that laughed at him. And what if this shadowy doppelgang only has those thoughts? Like, only has the dark thought. And so afterwards it proceeded to go to the village and burn it down and slaughter everyone there.
Pelican 1, landing in progress.
It's certainly stretching the wild magic effect a little bit.
Pelican 1 beginning ascent.
But that's DMing.
Democracy prevails once more.
You know, narratives and all that. And it just seemed like a really cool opportunity for a plot. So that's what happened. But there were some survivors. And so a few survivors made it to the town where Malkalon is. With him, you know, completely unaware of the Shadow Doppelganger's existence. Unaware that it just destroyed this village and killed so many people. And unaware that this creature looks like a shadowy version of him. And so he ended up, you know, resting up and then going to speak with one of the survivors to try and find out where goblins might be. And the woman sort of somewhat recognized him and decided to leave like an anonymous note with the town guard to maybe keep an eye on Malkalon. And, you know, the start of some rumors began filtering around that maybe Malkalon's up to no good. Maybe he's nefarious. With him completely unaware. But he got a tip that the goblins might have taken over this old abandoned quarry nearby.
The galactic war waits for no one.
So he just heads out to go kidnap a goblin as he intended to. Unaware of all these other things that are now happening. And meanwhile, the shadowy doppelganger is still out there somewhere. Lost in his own sort of cursed pursuit of knowledge. Sort of like Malkalon is. It's good stuff. That was that session. So it was just really cool to go from sitting down with no clue of any sort of character, plot, or location or anything, and then now we've got like multiple plates spinning and you know, cool stories underway, and we nearly died and blah blah blah, and that was in like 2 hours. For my family RPG though, so they had just nearly been TPK'd. They had been left destitute. All their money had been taken by a band of orcs, but they were left alive. And I could have killed them. TPKs are rough, you know, and like it never feels great. Having one character die or two characters die, it's like, oh, God, that's shitty. But you know, we can keep going. But a TPK, that's usually almost like a campaign ender, you know? Like you can't, it's very hard to pick up the pieces, so usually you just like start fresh. And I want them to kind of finish Lost Mines of Phandalin or Phandelver or whatever it is. So yeah, I spared them. And so they got together, you know, and they were talking about it, and they were trying to decide of whether they should just go and fight back against the orcs immediately and get back their money immediately. But they were all very banged up, and they decided to just kind of head back to town for now and rest and recuperate. So they did that, and they rested and recuperated. They have very little money now. And then they were talking about like where to go and what to do now. And you know, my brother Lego is playing now, and he's jumping into the middle of this adventure module. So I'm like, okay, for everyone's benefit, I'm going to just recap the story and what they know and all that. So I recapped the plot of this adventure module again.
Helldiver, take command of the galaxy's liberation.
And you know, I sort of repeated that, like, okay, there's the orcs, there's the druid over at the ruined town of Thunder Tree with the dragon that apparently needs some help. There's the goblins in Cragmaw Castle, and then there's this Wave Echo Cave. Now, normally the players would not know where this cave is. They'd have to go through all the other stuff to try and figure it out. But at the start of this whole game, you know, I had given them this book, The Question for God, that they can use once per session to ask me anything they want, and I will answer as truthfully as I can, as a DM and as, like, just a person, you know? And so, you know, a couple sessions ago or whatever, my sister had used it to ask the location of Wave Echo Cave. And I was like, okay, your character intrinsically knows how to get to the entrance of the cave. And so I had said that, like, okay, I mean, you know, her character does know where the cave entrance is. And they're all like, oh, well, let's just go there. There's lots of treasure there. like, okay. Again, it probably depends on the DM. I mean, obviously, some DMs wouldn't have even told them. But that's... I put the question for God in there. They can use it however they wish. They should know the ramifications of their own actions. I think it's important to learn that kind of stuff. And maybe another DM would have said, like, okay, well, you can go to the cave, but I'll just tell you that that's kind of like a bit of a higher level area, so it's going to be pretty dangerous if you really want to go there. I mean, I'm sure some DMs would say that to be kind of transparent. But no. Again, they should be able to put that together. And I explained that to them at the end of the session, that, like, you as players should be able to put together that, like, the big magical cave that everyone is interested in is probably, like, the finale of the adventure you're in. And that's, you know, meta, absolutely, but you're playing a game. At a certain point, there's going to be some meta things that you just have to be cognizant of. That's just how it is. But they all decided to just go to this Wave Echo Cave. And I'm like, okay, you know, it's not that far, it's just kind of hidden, and they trek over there, and they find the cave, and they go in. And yeah, so Wave Echo Cave is the big final dungeon of this whole adventure, which is meant for levels 1 through 4, for D&D. Now, they're level 3 in Heroes of Adventure. I don't know a comparison. Because I'm also, you know, doing different stat blocks for monsters and stuff. So a skeleton in D&D 5th edition is not the same as a skeleton in Heroes of Adventure. So it's really just hard to say. And I think they're probably suffering a little bit from that conversion. Because a lot of times with the adventure, I'm either just, like, keeping the numbers of enemies as is, or even bumping them up a little bit, just because it seems like they're pretty capable. I mean, they go into some fights, and they just fucking mop up. Because Heroes of Adventure, like, class abilities can be really powerful. Like, Great Cleave with, like, a battle axe or something like that can easily kill, like, 3 to 4 enemies in just one roll. Like, it's really good. Or a magic spell. Like, if you empower it, you can fucking devastate an entire horde of enemies. But that's why I want to get back to, like, a sandbox thing. Because then, like, it doesn't matter. Like, if you encounter 100 orcs and you slaughter 100 orcs, awesome. Good for you. Like, there's no expectations of any balanced encounters or anything like that. Whereas this is D&D. So... yeah, I don't know. And also, there's just more encounters than I would like, and blah, 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 blah. But anyways. So they go into the cave, and, you know, they're learning to be pretty cautious, certainly. They're, especially with Lego there now, like, they're checking for traps always. They're peeking open doors to glance through. You know, they're sending one person in a little bit to scout, and overall, I mean, they're being pretty cautious, classic sort of players here. But that's the thing with D&D. It's just like, especially with this module, it's just so straightforward. I don't know, it's just like there isn't a way around combat, is basically what I'm saying. Like, they came across this room with, like, a partially collapsed ceiling. And so one of the characters was like, oh, I'm going to poke in there and just see what's up there. And then, you know, the module just says anyone that spends a turn in the room, all 9 skeletons on the floor sort of join to get, like, they start standing up and they animate, and then they attack until they're destroyed. Like, there's no real creative solution to that other than perhaps just, like, running out and closing the door. Okay. Otherwise, you're just in a fight in a small room with 9 skeletons. And that's what happened. They got into a fight with 9 skeletons. And part of that is also my fault. When setting up the rooms, we just kind of dump the miniatures onto a square and just do the battle. But I really should be including way more, like, terrain stuff. In the room they were in, there were a bunch of, like, stone bunk beds and things like that. Like, that should be placed onto the board just for interesting features. They enter another room, and there's just, like, you know, a bunch of skeletons on the floor and murals on the wall, and they're poking around, and then it's like, yeah, so there's 10 sturges on the ceiling that ambush anyone that walks in here. It's like, okay, well, there you go, you're in a battle with 10 sturges now. It's just such a hallmark of why I don't like Dungeons & Dragons and don't like Wizards of the Coast mentality and stuff like that. For pre-written advent, like, it's just combat. Very rarely is there any sort of creative solution. So they're poking around, and, you know, they win in a couple fights, and they found a room with some ghouls in it, and they just quickly shut the door before anything was noticed, and blah, blah, blah. And they move through. And then they got to this big open cavern, mostly shrouded in darkness. And my sister's like, okay, I take two steps into the room, and I try and see what's going around. And it's like, okay, I mean, realistically, you take 2 steps into this big, open, dark cavern, you can't see shit. I mean, you even if you have a lantern up, like, you could see, what, 10 feet around you, maybe? Like, I can't see anything. I shouldn't have even described it as a big open cavern. You can't even tell that. Because, you know, D&D has just, like, their blocks of text for each room that you just read out loud. But really, I should have just been like, yeah, you step into darkness and it looks like might be a bigger room. And that's the end of the text, you know. Unless you have dark vision or some way to light up the whole room. But that's what she says, and I'm like, okay, I guess roll senses to see what you might be able to discern. And she rolls a 1.
Note to self.
And so the room in the module says that there's like 7 ghouls just kind of hanging out, waiting to ambush anyone that comes into the room. And so, of course, you know, she rolled a 1, and while she was checking out the room, of course, I had to have the ghouls ambush her, you know. But she was very upset because she's like, I took 2 steps into the room. And I was like, well, you know, you couldn't see much, so you know, you were trying to, like, peer closer into the darkness. And when we set the combat up, you know, I did put her just like a couple squares away from the rest of the group in the doorway. Like, I didn't throw her into the middle of the room. And then the ghouls all kind of dropped behind her, between her and the rest of the group. But yeah, she was pretty upset because she was just poking her head into the room. But it's
The bridge is yours, Helga.
What I should have said is like, okay, you cannot see anything other than 10 feet in. Unless you step further into the room. Like, that's what I should have said before I even made her roll. Just to really clarify. But, yeah, so she rolled a 1, she got ambushed, combat began, but she was kind of, like, separated from the rest of the group and surrounded. So she ended up getting knocked out. She, like, rolled under a table, but she got knocked out in the process. And then the rest of the group, you know, just kind of formed a bottleneck in the doorway and fought them off, and there were some magic spells used, and they kind of just roasted all the ghouls. But they dropped, like, these AoE spells right in the middle of them where my sister's character also was, so she ended up dying. And they acted like they didn't realize that, like, oh, I didn't know we could kill her. And it's like, okay, I mean, I've said before that if you go down to 0 and nothing happens to you until the end of the fight and afterwards, you'll come back at 1 HP on your own. If nothing happens to you. But you dropping like an AoE ice shard spell is something happening to you. You know? I feel like that's even a D&D 5th edition rule. Like it's not that crazy of a rule. If you take damage when you're already down. Okay, yeah, so D&D 5th edition has the death saving throws. So every turn while you're dying, you have to roll a d20. And if you roll lower than 10, you get a failure. And if you get 3 failures, you're dead. So if you take any amount of damage while dying, you automatically take 1 failure. So obviously that's a little bit more generous than what I did. And honestly, I kind of like that system just because I felt like there was always a lot of tension to it. Like there was always that sense of urgency, I remember, because I was in 4th edition as well. There's always a lot of sense of every turn. It's like, oh shit, he just failed again. He's on 2 failures. We need to get to him now and stabilize him. Whereas right now, when any of them goes down to 0, they're just like, he'll be fine. You know, we'll get him up after the battle's over. So I may steal that rule. I may actually steal a D&D rule and put it into Heroes of Adventure. Because the wound system, I find not many players really care for it, I think. Because it's either, like, pretty much negligible, like they don't really care that they took a wound because it goes away, or it's so debilitating that they're like, I'd rather have a new character. And there isn't that much tension to it. So yeah, I may swap that. Anyways. So there was our death for the session, and that's where we ended. And so obviously my sister was not too pleased with the whole outcome. Pretty much because she only likes playing one character, and she's played the same character every time we play D&D. And I think this is the first time she's died. So it's like, and my mom's like, can't she just resurrect or something? I'm like, no. Like, there has to be some stakes to what we're doing, otherwise what's the point? I mean, I don't care if a player comes in and says, you know, this is my character Tom's twin brother Brom, and it has like the same stats. I get like I can't stop you from doing that. But I would hope that it kind of encourages you to maybe switch some things up a little bit, or maybe try something different. Whereas if I just say, yeah, you can just make the same character, no one cares. It's like, all right, then there's no point. And so afterwards, a couple of the people were like, you know, what would you have done if she had rolled a 20 instead?
Helldiver, Take command of the galaxy's liberation.
Because, you know, there was obviously some contention there about the severity of a 1. And I think my sister at some point said, like, oh, if you roll a 1, you know, he can just do or say whatever he wants. You know, it's like completely out of your control if you roll a 1. And I said, well, you know, if you roll a 20, it's sort of like your story then, a little bit. But yes, I mean, that is the social agreement that we have come to here at the table. I am the DM, and I am running the game. It's... I never like to take away player agency in any way. But inevitably, you know, if you roll a 1 in a tense situation, something bad is going to happen to your character that you are not going to like. I mean, that's just how it is. So, you know, we had sat there for a little bit and talked about, like, what they could have done differently, and it's like, well, usually you don't want to send one of your, like, non-tank characters, defenseless characters, into a dangerous situation potentially on their own, which they had just done before. Their mage had been the one to check out the collapsed ceiling and got attacked by skeletons. So you'd think that they would have learned a lesson there, but they didn't. They really struggle with learning lessons. I think that can be said. Also, you know, I remarked that almost none of them outside of Lego have taken any defensive abilities whatsoever. Like, all of them basically are playing DPS characters that are sort of glass cannons. They all went very heavy on offensive abilities. They all took Great Cleave, Mighty Blow, Coordinated Attack, like double shot, you know, like none of them took dodge, parry, you know, evasive, anything. None of the spellcaster spells are really like heavily defensive or utility stuff. It's all like missile and hellfire, you know, like it's just like this is not that kind of like, yeah, and many of them are not gamers in any way. So I kind of get it. Like, there's just not a concept of understanding the dangers of being glass cannons. But yeah, I mean, if you neglect defensive measures entirely, you will pay for it. There is a reason that tanks in the military are armored. And they're not just like big giant glass turrets that they bring out onto the field. You know, like you don't want to get hit, but sometimes you might get hit and you want to be prepared for that. Anyways, so they asked, you know, what would I have done if she had rolled a 20? And I said, well, pretty much I would have said that amazingly she peers into the darkness and manages to see the 7 ghouls kind of just lurking nearby, waiting to ambush. Like, I would have essentially foiled or nullified the ambush. Whereas if she rolls a 1, she springs the ambush. I feel like that's fair. And there are absolutely plenty of people that don't like dice rolls to that degree. And there are plenty of RPGs that don't have 1s and 20s being that sort of that magnitude, that cause, like, extra effects or anything like that. If you roll a 1, it's like rolling a 2, just slightly shittier. If you roll a 20, it's like rolling a 19, but slightly better. Like, there's nothing special assigned to those numbers. There's no concept of a crit or crit fail. And I can see the argument for that, but, you know, for every shitty crit fail you roll, and it's just dire and can lead to death and all that, and it's just horrible when you see it come up, there's also the flip side of, you know, the just excitement and joy when you roll a 20 during a crucial moment, you know. So I don't know if I could ever really get rid of crits and crit fails. It just seems like such a hallmark of the hobby. So yeah, that's where we left off. She'll be making a new character of some kind for next week. And, they'll pick it up. I did explain to them afterwards that they are in, like, the final dungeon, and they should have realized that. I even showed them quickly the map of the dungeon so they could see how big it was. And I think they were discussing maybe just leaving for now and going back and clearing out the goblins or the thunder tree before coming back here. I mean, at this point, the whole plot is just so fucked. Like, they've wasted so much time and things like that. That, like, like, I probably should just, like, progress the actual plot. Like, the villain should pretty much just win at this point, I think. Which is basically what I'm doing with the orcs. Because now the orcs have gotten all this money from them that they're going to very quickly expand. And the new chieftain is going to be, you know, much more powerful. So if they ever go back to the orcs, there's going to be like 100 of them. And it's going to be a very growing problem for the region if they don't solve it, eventually necessitating like an actual military action. But the military is pretty busy right now with the war going on the west, in the west. So yeah, but as soon as this adventure is kind of wrapped up, we're going right back to just being a sandbox campaign. Because now that we have Lego in there, I'm hoping that he'll be able to drive a lot more of the action and story and things like that, and make, you know, be able to maybe accomplish some fun stuff. Because he's very unfamiliar with, like, tabletop RPGs. You know, he's used to, like, Baldur's Gate. So I don't think he really realizes the full potential of things that you can accomplish in a tabletop game. But it is very nice having him there now, because he quickly grasped a lot of the rules of Heroes of Adventure. You know. And so he's able to actually, like, tell other people at the table rules and correct them and stuff on rules, so I don't have to say everything. So that's been very nice. But alright, anyways, enough jibber jabber. We've got more Dragons Down this week, more Cataclysm, Sky Island, some RimWorld eventually, whether two brothers play or solo, we'll see. Over on the Exploring series, a video on the armaments of the Tau, if you like shiny mechs and plasma carbines and things like that, and drones. But for now, my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. I'll see you fine folks next week.